My name is Grace Nzula. I'm a HR consultant with Atara Solutions, and we are so excited to have you here. I'm also a trainer. Atara Solutions is a HR training and consulting firm. You are tuned in to Get It Right with Atara Solutions. This is a webinar series that seeks to demystify issues in entrepreneurship and employment. Sorry. Yeah, so we do this every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. and we discuss different things that affect entrepreneurs and employees, or technically things that affect people in the workplaces. Wow. And part of what we've been able to cover is we've done quite a number of sessions on mental health, and we thought because season 3 we haven't really done mental health, we did stress management. We thought it's about time we started this. I know Nancy and I were discussing about covering employee wellness in the work programs in the workplaces, and we are going to schedule for that in the near future. But other than that, this webinar series is brought to you by Atara Solutions, and we do this in partnership with a number of organizations. We do this with Balcon Housing. Balcon Housing is a real estate and property management firm. They sell land, they also manage property. And then we also have a Stallion Construction Company. Stallion Construction is a construction company that helps you renovate your places. It helps you create new spaces and also do construction, like build houses and stuff like that. And then we have Pathway Service Solutions. Pathway is a training firm, and they have been offering training on their LMS. They have an awesome content, very beautiful content on their LMS, and they have actually offered some free sessions to people. And today we are also going to have 2 people win. Last time we offered 4 and only 2 people reached out. And congratulations, there is a guy who is there's a guy who already has finished the 5 sessions, which he's done in the time. And Frank tells me he was very, very impressed by his results. And as a result, he has been added 3 sessions on the same. So congratulations, Peter, on your work well done. I know self-learning is not the easiest of things, and I hope you continue learning as you receive your certificates and do the assessments. So congratulations. We also have Career Management Center. Career Management Center is a HR and training firm. If you're looking for somebody to do your career coach, Jane is a certified career coach, and she can walk the journey of your career with you. If you're looking for interview coaching and any matter HR, Career Management Center is there for you. And then we have Wandi Restaurant. Wandi Restaurant is a restaurant based on Kambiti, on Nyeri, Nanyuki, Nairobi Nyeri Road, on Nanyuki or Kirinyaga, that side. They are at Kambiti. The new Ola station, there's a restaurant there called Wendy. And then we also have WeClean. WeClean is a carpet cleaning company, and they have a machine that cleans your carpets within 6 minutes. Very, very impressive technology, and way to go, way to go. So if you're looking for somebody to clean your carpet, they actually do free pickup and drop off. Of course, not in Limuru or very far areas, but if you're in Nairobi and probably in an estate where you are a number of you, they will come, even if the distance is how far, they'll come and pick. But if you're in Nairobi, Umoja, Kiambu Road, Karen areas, and all these places, they will come and pick up your carpet and return the next day. They actually have they're able to clean, but because of delivery, they may not be able to deliver the same day, but for sure, within 24 hours, you're assured of having a very, very clean carpet with you. So they're called WeClean, and we really appreciate their partnership. So without further ado, we want to introduce, Nancy, do you want us to run the poll now? Or do you want to make an intro first?
You can run it. I will do the intro as it goes on.
Okay, fine. All right. So we want to do a poll so that we can set grounds for this. And kindly take part in this poll. We have a few questions. We have question 1 is, did you grow up with a parent who uses substances? It's a yes or no answer. Were you beaten up as a child? Is question 2. Did you grow up in one location? It's a yes or no. Were your parents present at all times? It's a yes or no. Did you experience any neglect as a child? It's yes or no. And Nancy, I added, did you lose a parent at an early age as well? So please, let's run the poll. And I know you probably, I'm sure we have new people. So Nancy, you'll probably go ahead and introduce yourself and the whole Hisia team. And then we can continue from there. Over to you, Nancy.
Asante sana, Grace. I am so happy to have this audience and stage today. My name is Nancy Kabiru. I am a psychologist with Hisia Psychology Consultant. I am a burst of positive energy. And our way of therapeutic approach is one that we ensure that our solutions are practical. Okay?
Nancy?
Yes.
We may need to have one of your gadgets out of the same room because we are getting an echo.
I only have one gadget.
Oh, okay. It's probably the mic, Sawa.
All right. Super.
All right.
So our approach is that we ensure our therapeutic solutions are practical. We have a team of expert therapists for everyone, meaning we specialize in different fields. As much as Hisia Psychology Consultants, which is the firm I run, has a team of therapists. Each of them specializes in different fields. So when you reach out to us, you will be sure to get a solution and a way forward to handle mental health and wellness as a whole. So Grace, maybe you can give us the results if we have the votes.
Of
the poll questions.
Yes, I am looking for question 1. So we have, did you grow up with a parent who uses substances? 62% said no, 38% said yes. And then, were you beaten as a child? 81% said yes, 19% said no. Did you grow up in one location? 55% said yes, 45% said no, and the numbers keep coming. And then, were your parents present at all times? 51% say yes, 49% say no. And then, did you experience any neglect as a child? 43% say yes, 58% say no. Did you lose a parent at an early age? Yes, by 19%. 81% have said no.
Awesome, awesome. So how many questions have a majority score?
So we have, did you grow up with a parent who uses substances? No is the highest.
Mm-hmm.
And then
yes as the highest.
Yes as the highest. Were you beaten up as a child? That one Kwanza has 80 to 20.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Were you beaten up as a child is question 2.
Yes.
And then the other one is, did you grow up in one location? Also has the highest. Were your parents present at all times? Yes, has a bit of a higher. The difference is 1%. Did you experience neglect? No. Yeah, the others are no.
All right. So thank you, Grace. So I think we have about 3 questions that score yes as a high, and there's one that is close, which is okay because this forms the basis of our conversation today. Because when we are talking about trauma, childhood trauma, we have to look at the things a child goes through, and hence those questions. So Grace, if you can share my screen.
1 minute, Nancy.
All right.
I forgot.
No problem. So as you get ready, I will just be explaining what childhood trauma is for the sake of understanding. And at this point, we are looking at all the experiences. When we talk about childhood, we are looking at all the experiences you have had as a child. And when we say as a child, we're looking at an age gap of 0 to 18 years, okay? So any experience you had between 0 to 18 years is a childhood experience. Now, when we talk about trauma, it is that negative experience you had within that age gap. Now, depending on the age at which you experience the trauma or the adversity, because childhood trauma is also known as adverse childhood experiences. So I will use childhood trauma and ACEs interchangeably to mean the same thing. So depending on the age at which you experience ACEs, then it means that your way of dealing with this situation is also gauged upon that age. You're sort of stuck to a response that you had to cope with or come up with at that age. Now, anyone who has had a childhood experience will have a hyper sensitivity with their senses. So if it is abuse that you experience that was verbal, then your hearing sensations will be hyper. Okay, if it was physical violence, then your body will also respond whenever you witness or hear of any physical violence as an adult. Okay, if it was you are taught now to numb those abuse, then you will obviously, when there is adversity, the sense to respond to that danger will also be numbed. So I was talking about senses being alerted. So you know we have sense of sight, sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of touching, and the last one you know. So whichever the sense you had to have experience or you had to go through will be what is heightened. So if it was seeing violence, you will have hypersensitivity to anything that triggers or seems violent. If it was hearing, you'll also pick those things that you think are abusive or they are violent. And so on and so forth. So for those who say that they were beaten up as children, it could have been beaten up in school, beaten up by a caregiver, or beaten up by older siblings, which forms still part of your adverse childhood experience. So right now, if you have kids that you take care of, then I would think that you either beat them or you avoid beating them as a whole. For those who did not grow up in a permanent location, means that they had to move around, meaning they had to form new relationships every other time they move from one location to the other, which in some instances can cause someone to have an adversity in how they relate, because then your environment is not consistent. And if it's not consistent, you cannot trust it. So that can build up to you having challenges with trusting. Then I'm seeing we have quite a big number that parents were present at all time, which is good, and so on and so forth. So I will go to my presentation today. And when we talk about a childhood experience, I had mentioned earlier, we look at the experiences you had before you were 18. Although we have to, of course, bear in mind that brain development happens to every individual until the age of 24. But because legally you're under your parents' care up to the age of 18, then we are going to focus on that in our country.
Nancy, I'm still, yeah, I have shared screen. I don't know whether you can see, and the echo is still there. It improved, but it's still quite something.
So
I don't know that there's, yeah, there's something that has that noise.
Let me try and log in with a different machine.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, maybe you can run support on your end.
Okay. All right. So as we wait for Nancy to sort out the gadget issue, because I realized that sometimes technology just fails us. So we can engage on the chat and we can share some of your worst childhood experiences. What is the one experience that you cannot forget that happened to you or to a neighbor of yours or somebody you know? And we can engage on the chat. What is one experience that you really cannot forget that you still remember to date? And this would be either on the negative or positive. What is the one thing that you cannot forget as an experience? And yes, we are live on Facebook, and our Facebook people, thank you very much for joining. and the guys who joined in from Facebook. But yeah, I'm looking out for your chat. What is the one experience that you cannot forget that happened to you as a child? The one experience that happened to you as a child. If you can engage me on the chat. Okay, somebody says my parents were there for me. Another one says losing my dad. Grace says several beatings and insulted by parents. The other one is saying losing my mother at the age of 11. Okay, keep the experiences coming. Keep the experiences coming. Living with a harsh auntie. The other one says was sent to a shop with 1K, went and enjoyed football and lost the cash. And then somebody says, my uncle lied and I got a beating for it. Somebody says, touched inappropriately by some male relatives. The other one says, raped by close a family member. And then we have losing my dad at the age of 9 and mom at the age of 11. And then we have beatings from my guardian and losing a parent. Okay, neglect and no keen attention to me, beat by my siblings were recognized, and then broke my mom's cup. They were beaten to a pulp, and then forced to focus on school and missed out on my talent. And says losing both parents so painfully at a young age. And then I was married. I was almost married off immediately after school without my consent. There is neglect. Well, neglected and exposed to a world in an early age. Well, these are some experiences. My mother beating me up, calling me ugly, and always said that my siblings were very pretty, even when visitors came to visit. She even had a friend who they called me ugly with, and they would laugh. Wow, wow, wow. Those are some very, very sad experiences. There are those that we laugh about now. There are those that some we can't even open up about them. And the unfortunate thing is most of our childhood experiences make our relationships now a bit difficult. How we relate with people, it is affected. Somebody says several beatings. The other one says a daytime parties without parents permission attracted immediate caning. And then insults from my dad. My mom never gave. My mom never giving me attention. Neglect from both parents and guardians. Parents separated or divorced when I was 10. My dad remarried immediately. My mom did not. Lived with my mom and would visit dad and his wife during holidays. The one says, I was sodomized by my teacher. The other one says, being forced to mature at a very early age. And then we have, I had to figure out how to get my pocket money in high school. So I would sell stuff during holidays to cater for my needs. And then there's beaten by my dad. Wow. So some people have really gotten some sad experiences. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation today because we will learn how to deal with them. Some of them, of course, we cannot exhaust here today, but we have to start this conversation. We have to start talking about it. My friend Posa, in the month of March, she did 3 webinars on trauma. She covered school-induced trauma, she covered religious-induced trauma, and then workplace-induced trauma. And if you're interested, you can reach out to me and I will be able to share with you the recording of those sessions. And I was very sad to hear the musician from Nigeria who died in an abusive marriage. And the church said that it was her destiny. That was very, very disturbing for me. And I think that's part of what we call the church-induced trauma. We have somebody else who says, was raised as an only child by a single mom. who died at the age of 19 years. All the time knowing my dad wasn't alive, but then came to know my dad is alive at the age of 30 years. Wow. Wow. And then somebody else says, a comparison between me and siblings, which followed with daily beatings. We have quite gone through a life. Somebody else says, and nearly raped by my brother's friend, neglect from dad, watching my dad physically abuse my mom every day. Wow, quite some serious experiences that we have gone through. And we have this conversation today because we want to see how exactly do we deal with it. And unfortunately, we had a technological issue, and Nancy is trying to log in with a different gadget. Somebody says they would like a recording for this. Yes, we normally do a recording and upload it on our YouTube channel. We normally have a YouTube channel with all the recordings of the previous sessions. If you want anything mental health, we have quite a lot. We've done about 6 episodes on mental health. You can find them from season 1. Thank you, Posa. Posa has shared the recording on the the religious induced trauma, work-induced trauma, and what was the other one? I've forgotten, and I've just mentioned. Religious, work, and gosh, wow, I'll remember shortly. I think I've lost my thought. And school-induced trauma. Thank you, Posa. Posa has been able to share the recording. You can save it somewhere, and then, but if you wish and you're not able to save it right now, you can get in touch with me, and I'll be able to share with you on your WhatsApp. All right. So childhood trauma actually has a direct effect on how you relate with people. It has a lot of how you live life, technically. So we can actually do that. Can you also share the YouTube? Not everyone is on Facebook. Unfortunately, the sessions that were done with POSA were only done on Facebook. They don't have a YouTube channel. And so unfortunately, that's the only place you can access that recording. It's only on Facebook. But if you're looking for our own recording, we have a channel. We call it Get It Right with the Tara Solutions. And Jacinta is kind enough. She's posted it on the chat. You can follow us, and you can also subscribe and just catch up with the content there. So our objective today is technically to understand childhood trauma, identify causes of ACEs, and identify ACEs in adulthood, sorry. And Nancy will be joining us shortly to explain what ACEs are and identify, so that then we are able to deal with it. So childhood trauma is also referred as ACEs, okay. And she had explained what childhood trauma is. And thank you, Nancy. I can see you. Welcome back. You are muted. Okay, she's still muted. I think she's still settling in.
Thank you, Grace. Is the echo still there?
Oh, finally. Yeah, no, we are clear. We are home now. I almost became a therapist.
I hope we have not become traumatized waiting for us to go live.
No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
All right.
So
and
yeah,
I've seen and had the sharings that guys have sent on the chat box, and definitely those form part of what we consider childhood trauma. Okay, so the objective today is to understand childhood trauma, to identify the causes of ACEs, to identify ACEs in adulthood, and then also how to walk the healing journey, right? So those are the 4 key areas I will be talking about, and I will do justice around there. If there's more detail or information required, definitely I'll share my contact, and I'm sure Grace can organize another forum for us to have this discussion. I'll begin with a quote by Peter Levine, and he talked about trauma being the most avoided, ignored, belittled, denied, misunderstood, and untreated cause of human suffering. Okay, so for all the things that you have shared that you went through as a child, are there some that you belittled that you denied, you felt helpless as a child, or you shared and you felt misunderstood, all right? And also, did you go through any form of being ignored or avoidance? Have you had any avoidance to that topic, all right? So that being the most belittled and ignored thing at the moment, when we look at the leading causes of death, most of them originate, the illnesses that a lot of people have that we term chronic, and even some mental health conditions, are as a result of adverse childhood experiences. So when you don't resolve those experiences, then you continue to propagate that in your adult life, and it continues to cage yourself, it continues to cage you, or even in the way you can express or relate to the world, it is, little. It cannot be, you can't be free enough because you're always guarding the trauma you experience, okay? So any experience or event that a child experiences that is emotionally painful, distressful, that results in a lasting mental and physical effect that we consider as a childhood trauma, or anything that evokes fear. I don't know if you've ever seen a child and asked them whether they are okay or they are safe, and they don't know whether to say yes or no, or whether you can picture yourself as a child and the instances that you had that you did not know whether to admit that you're actually suffering or to just keep quiet because you did not feel safe. So this experience that evoked any form of fear, whether you consider it little or it is major now, was a trauma that you went through. And any sort of trauma, we call that a wound, okay? A wound that could have healed, but not completely. It still has some infection, or a wound that is still open. And anytime you think about that experience, you have a real-time pain or emotional or cognitive journey about how you felt then as a kid. So what causes this childhood trauma? Definitely with the sharing on the chat box, I think we have covered most of it. We have what we call distress in the family, and this could be abuse. Abuse can be physical, can also be verbal, all right? So when we are in the case of a child or in the case of a partner, it can also be material or financial, emotional, and spiritual. So any form of abuse that you went through as a child that made you feel fearful, that made you feel some sort of distress, was trauma. Any sort of neglect, because you can be neglected, and we look at the economic state being one of the leading causes of neglect towards children, because as parents look to make an income, then the kids suffer, right? The rising cost of living lead kids to suffering. In this day and age, I know a lot of people are working 2 jobs. So if you're a parent and you're working 2 jobs and you're not able to balance your time, then you could be neglecting your children. And when you were young, if your parent had to travel, or they had to put you up in a boarding school, or they had to put you with your grandmother or an auntie, then for them to go look for resources, then you may have experienced some sort of neglect, and it made you feel unsafe, okay? The abuse can also be, or the neglect can also be to the intimate partner, you witnessing your mother, your father being neglected, or any form of violence. There's also death. Someone talked of losing a parent at a young age. And I know that must have been painful. And, when you think about it, maybe you feel there are some things you might have missed. And if you know of anyone who has lost parents at a young age, definitely that is a form of distress. And any form of divorce or separation that one may go through, that is, something that can lead to distress in the family. Then we look at family struggles with health. If you grow up seeing your parents struggle with a chronic illness or any form of impairment, including mental health conditions, because there are those conditions that are diagnosed, and there are people who are still rigid to go seek support mentally. So if you grew up seeing your parents struggle, and maybe right now you can be able to put the, 1 and 2 together to pick what your parents struggled with, what mental health condition they struggled with, then you probably have ACEs. Then we look at family violence. I talked of it being physical or verbal. And then there are parents who have learned a skill we call hopelessness and helplessness. So every time they talk, they inflict fear upon you, and they inflict a form of helplessness or hopelessness. So you find if you grew up in such a home setting, then you may have a big desire and prioritizing making money. And as you make money, anything else that comes in the way, you cannot be able to form relationship. Your goal is just making money because of that adverse childhood experience, or because of the hopelessness and helplessness that maybe your parents had. We have seen also kids on the street begging. You're taught how to beg. So you feel hopeless and you feel helpless, and the only way for you to survive is either by begging or stealing, which still causes one to have an adversity in their upbringing. If your parent had addiction issues with substances, that can be alcohol or any other form of drug, then they may have had issues with regulating their emotions or regulating what they say to you, or when they say it, or how they say it. And this could lead to you having had that experience. And then there is also emotional dysregulation. So emotional dysregulation is as a result of what you learned and how you learned it from the caregiver. Someone is saying they cannot see me, and this is because I'm using my phone. I will just put the camera off. Please listen to my voice. I will share maybe later. Now, when we talk about trauma, because trauma is very, very broad, we are looking at 4 key areas. We look at rejection. If you went through any form of rejection, then you have something we call a rejection trauma. If you went through abandonment, okay, based on the examples I gave earlier, then you have abandonment trauma. If you went through betrayal, because you could have been betrayed, then, or you could have seen somebody close to you going through betrayal, then you may have what we call betrayal trauma. And if you witness injustice, or injustice was done to you, like somebody mentioned about an older relative molesting them, that could, and then there was nothing legally that was taken up, or even if there was, maybe the law didn't take its course, you may have felt some sort of injustice, so you could be dealing with something we call as injustice trauma. To a child, ACEs or childhood trauma looks like or feels like to the child them not being seen or being heard. So picture yourself, were there instances or situations that you felt unheard or you felt unseen? And were they common? Okay. Emotions being invalidated. This is you being taught that certain emotions make you feel weak or undesirable. Or having your boundaries violated, or you have been burdened to parentification. Parentified is when you take up the role of your parents, taking care of other siblings, taking care of your parents, taking care of yourself at a young age. All right. When you have to do that, like somebody talked about them having to learn how to survive and make pocket money in high school. So they had to sell things. This is parentification. Okay, it has its positive. Not all trauma has negative effect, because there are those who are able to learn from that. So you may find that person is a very good entrepreneur. So there is the beauty from the situation that you grew up with, but at the same time, there is the way it made you feel, and it drives you and motivates you. The question is it a positive drive, or do you feel that it is something you have to, and can you justify the purpose of what you do today? Then you have parents who overcompensate. They overcompensate. They are there too much that they don't allow you to learn to be yourself. So if you're a child, you have assignment to do, your parent helps you to sort that assignment. It can be annoying because you never learn how to solve issues for yourself. So overcompensating parenting to a child is traumatic, or it can be a form of ACE. Then having parents who deny your reality. You tell them, this is what I experienced. They tell you, no, that cannot be. That person cannot do that. So what it does is that it affects you. It affects the way you view the world. It affects your ability to trust. And so you grow up having to build a shell around yourself because you have not been taught how to be heard. Now, the last thing I would like to talk about on essays on a child is having parents who focus heavily on appearance. Parents who tell you, if you did this, you would look better. Why don't you cut down on your weight? Why don't you comb your hair this way? Why don't you shave it? Wear these clothes. Every time they dictate how you should look, and they themselves also insist upon that. And maybe you have been given a different body to the one that your body shape, to the one that your parents have or your family members have. And, it becomes a struggle. Maybe you retain weight. There are those who also are not able to retain weight. So maybe you're slender, and to somebody else, they could be a bit plump. And this affects your self-esteem. And when it's, a parent or a caregiver keeps brushing that on you, it forms some form of way that, it's a wound in how you perceive yourself and you look at yourself. So when we are looking at how a child feels and what they are lacking or what they would need at any one time, that child would need to feel that the parent is consistent, that the parent is responsive, that the parent is paying attention to them, that the parent is giving them encouragement, the parent is supportive. Lack of that causes one to have ACEs. Now, ACEs or trauma will affect, how many key areas are these? It will affect several key areas in your life, about 7 of them. The first one being brain development. So I mentioned earlier, if you went through this adversity as a young age, say at 7 years old, if you compare that adversity to someone who was in their teen years, probably the one in their teen years had developed coping mechanism, but the one at 7 had not. So their brain development gets impaired. What do we mean by that? That the brain size becomes smaller. They have little or ability to process things. Then because of this distress, now the distress is, the age doesn't matter. Depending on where you face this distress or stress, genes are altered, okay? I always tell my clients, anytime you go through any form of stress, you alter your genes or your genes are altered. So imagine that child, their genetic way of formation, it becomes a bit different from yours as an adult. Now, in terms of cognition, their readiness to learn, their way to express themselves, ability to concentrate, performance academically, those can be affected because of a child going through trauma. And that's why you find a lot of institutions, when a child drops their performance, they want to know what is happening at home. Has there been any change? Because this can affect the way the child is performing. Then we look at the physical health. You'll find that children will have interrupted sleep, or they will even wet the bed at night. This is because of the trauma they're experiencing. So when a child wets the bed and they had learned to go to the toilet, they had already overcome that stage, then we like to dig deeper to understand what has been a change that they have experienced and how has it impacted them, and help them to have a voice. So you may have observed, if you went through trauma, that you had sleep disorders, or you may have had eating disorders or difficulties, or you may have been getting immunity challenges, so getting flus and infections every now and then. And this is as a result of what you are going through. An infant, when the parents are not in good terms, or they are going through some form of difficulty in a relationship, you find the child developing infections. So if you had already become a school-going child, you may have started developing these infections. They could be asthma, breathing difficulties, or related to that adversity. Then emotionally, you find that you had issues, or someone has issues in controlling their emotions, or recognizing the emotions they're experiencing at that time. They may have an increased sensitivity to stress. Remember what I talked about, the senses being hyper alert or triggered, or they may have excess worry or hopelessness. So every time they are vigilant and they feel that there can't be a solution for what they are going through. Then we look at relationship. Someone having challenges with forming attachment or healthy relationship. Someone having poor understanding of social interaction. And this is where you find, if someone is looking for employment and you had been abused sexually growing up, you think for you to get your way in employment or through a job is if you give these advances. So you're not able to form healthy relationship, you're not able to sell your skills, because that is the form of contact that was introduced to you. Then difficulty forming relationship with friends. So if you have challenges forming relationship with friends and you cannot keep a group for a long time, then it could point out that you have attachment issues and you have self-esteem issues, and you're not able to, you have not yet addressed that. Then when I look at mental health, people who constantly suffer depression or anxiety, or have negative self-image, or have low self-esteem, or have PTSD or suicidality, can all be connected or attributed to an adversity that you went through as a child. And then the last area is behavior, when you are not able to regulate yourself. Just like somebody who uses substances, they will give the excuse of, I abused people around, or I talked badly because I had consumed. If I had not consumed, I would not have abused people, So you're not able to regulate yourself. Or somebody, the behaviors that come with alcoholism or any other substance use. When you have poor impulse control, you get triggered by, something that is not as major as your response. That can be an indicator that you have had childhood trauma. Or if you have been acting out sexually, or you had adolescent pregnancy, because yes, as a child, if you become pregnant, definitely it changes your life, it changes who you are. Or if you impregnate someone, it changes how you view the world. So that can be a form of childhood. It can be an indicator of a childhood trauma you went through, or someone close to you has gone through. And it's important to know these signs and symptoms so that we can be able to step in when we are needed, or when we can be able to point these things out and seek for support for ourselves or for people around us. We can move to the next slide. So in adults, I talked a lot about children. Now in adults, because this forum is for adults, how ACEs manifest. Do you know of anyone who loves or who has a chronic condition of rescuing people or fixing people? They have a set way of operating, and so it has to be done in that way. Are you that person? Do you have a form of codependency? All right. Do you seek external validation, or do you know someone who seeks external validation? Do you know of a child who will seek external validation? I talked of hypervigilance. There's a song by a local musician called Major. If you have time, please listen to it. And I don't know if this is the right way of spelling his name, but the song is Siski, this lady, Siski, and then it continues, Siski. So he's being told, leave this lady, Siski. He doesn't want to leave her. And the lady keeps coming. If you leave me, I'm going to take her pick and I'm going to commit suicide. So Major gets stuck to this person because he's afraid the person will harm themselves. That is an indicator that the character in the song has had adverse childhood issues. And at the same time, this fixer or this hero, in this case, Major, the character in the song, he also has adverse childhood issues because he's not able to form boundaries. He's not able to be assertive on what he wants. He's not able to prioritize his needs. He tolerates abuse, right? He has low self-esteem, and then he keeps resisting positive change. The friends, are coming and telling him, this is what you need to do, but he keeps resisting that. So if you listen to that song, you can be able to relate on how ACEs manifest in adulthood. The last slide, Grace. How do you go through the healing journey? Now, when you've realized, or when you can be able to point out the adversity you went through as a child, or the trauma you went through, or the wound that you still carry with you into adulthood that you started carrying when you were a child. How do you go through healing so that you do not continue propagating the illness? The first area is acceptance and awareness. And I think this forum has set a good base of us being able to point out or pick out what ACEs are and what childhood trauma is. And if you have an experience, even if you don't think it's so major, it's good to be able to call yourself for a meeting and go like, yeah, I actually went through that. I did. So that's the first stage, acceptance and being aware that you actually did. Don't be in denial. The second stage, once you have been able to pick that and you can identify that you behave, relate the way you do currently to the world, to the relationships around you because of your upbringing, and you feel it lacked in a way, then you need to seek therapy. And that's where his psychology consultants comes in. Seek therapy because our therapists will equip you with practical solutions. They will give you a framework that help you to develop the right toolkit for the challenges you went through, okay? The third thing is having some form of self-care. How do you take care of yourself right now that you know you went through that? What are the needs you have probably neglected that are important to you? What are some of those experiences you would have wanted to have? And we see that your upbringing will also affect how you attach your attachment behavior or language. So there are those who are not able to soothe themselves. You can't soothe yourself because you did not learn, you were not taught. And so you cannot take care of yourself because you don't know how to. So therapy will help you, or you can start some of the things you feel, this is a self-care technique for me, and it will help me to get over my challenge. The other thing is being able to get to a point where you can relate with your inner child. And when I talk about relating with your inner child, some of the things or feelings or emotions you will experience may evoke some sadness or some sort of grief in you. And you need to do the grief work, okay? And how do you parent yourself? Here I have said parent yourself, and I mean learn to soothe yourself so that you do not need someone else to soothe or meet those needs that you cannot express. That way you're able to live a fulfilling life, okay? The other area, which is very, very important, but depending on your personality, and that's why therapy is important so that you understand yourself, we call it journaling. There are some personalities which will have difficulty journaling, and there are those that will have it easy to journal. But being able to put your thoughts, your feelings out on a paper, it forms as a way of relieving what sits within. And now you put it on a piece of paper so you can be able to function. So it's very relieving. And then the last area that I want all of us to remember, for you to go through the healing journey, you need to be consistent in therapy, consistent in self-care, consistent in how you relate with your inner child, consistent with journaling, and consistent in parenting yourself. The second thing is you need to be responsive to yourself, be supportive, model a self-soothing behavior to yourself and to your environment. And then pay attention, be aware of what you're feeling at that time. And you can use also a grounding technique that we call, when you're feeling if you start experiencing anxiety, you pay attention on what you can see, what you can hear, what you can touch, what you can taste, and what you can feel. So pay attention, and paying attention will help you to identify what triggers probably take you back to that wound. Then acknowledging your pain, exploring your feelings, and then encourage yourself to go through grief, encourage yourself to go through therapy, encourage yourself to relate with your inner child, and then creating support. You cannot create support with one pillar. You would need more than one, or you would need a base and a top. So this support could be friends, could be your therapist, could be colleagues that you trust. So depending on what you feel is safe for you, that is how you can be able to walk the healing journey. And that forms the end of my presentation. I will take any questions if there are. Grace, if you can share my contacts. Asante sana. Those are my contacts if you would like to ask or reach out. Are there questions, Grace?
Hello, Nancy. This is
Hi.
Kevin.
Yes.
From the chat, so far, we still don't have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Unless if anyone has a question, please post it in the chat so that we can tackle it. We're only receiving good news here. I have someone has never thought that their childhood upbringing might actually be affecting them as an adult, and until this very moment, and they're very grateful to you and to Atara. So there's a question, Nancy. How do I book an individual counseling session with you? Hello, Nancy.
Hi, Kevin. I think technology today. Awesome. So the numbers we had on the screen, the 0745 562 108. 0745 562 108. That is Hisia Psychology Consultant. We are on social media. You can send us a message on either of the platform, and you can also request to be seen by me if you prefer it that way. So that is how you book an individual session. So feel free to reach out.
All right, and if you can't get Nancy, please feel free to send us an email. We'll help you get in touch with her. There is also another question here. Does childhood trauma cause nightmares?
It can cause nightmares, yes. Nightmares are associated with trauma. But then, have you always had these nightmares, or has there been a trigger? Are you able to relate that to a childhood experience you had? So this is a journey you can walk through and understand why your nightmares are the way they are and what is causing them, and how maybe now to start handling yourself. If you get a lot of nightmare, if you experience a lot of trauma, then we advise that you seek therapy, yes, with us. And you would be lucky if you got an appointment with me, because I am a clinical hypnotherapist. So definitely I'd be able to help you bridge from your past to your presence and be able to reach those negative experiences, but in a safe environment or safe way.
Okay. There's also another question here, just talking about trauma. Are disorders such as bipolar, ADHD, or depression an outcome of childhood trauma?
Especially disorders such as ADHD, I will say borderline personality, right? Depression, yes, can be associated with childhood trauma. Borderline personality is a learned coping mechanism a child may develop because of adversity in their childhood. So yes, I'd say that can be related to that.
Great, great. There's also, in the same line, someone is asking, how do you deal with a toxic parent, bearing in mind you cannot avoid them forever?
I'd say you would need to learn how to equip yourself so that your perception and interpretation of their behavior does not always trigger you. Anytime you're in a toxic environment, the first thing to do is to get out of that toxic state. So if it is a parent that you can be able to spend time away from, then it would be advisable to do that so that you can walk the healing journey. So you just don't keep away and you're not seeking therapy or you're not doing anything to grow yourself. Keep away and make effort to gain healing and to gain understanding on how to handle them. And maybe in your journey, you will understand that maybe your response to their abuse, encourages them to continue being the way they are. Or therapy can help you be able to point it out to them. They may not be aware that they actually injure you with their behavior or conversation around you. But once you have walked the healing journey, you come to them as a whole and somebody who is equipped and can be able to deal with that situation. But I'd say don't expose yourself to that toxicity throughout. If you can be able to step out, if you can be able to have some time to go through healing, that is important. Rather than decide that you go through healing while you're still under the same roof, it can have a negative effect on you.
Great, great, great. I think that answers the same question as how to deal with a boss who has personal disorders and extremely insecure. If I'm not wrong, right, Nancy?
Yes, it answers that. And at the same time, maybe that's not the right place for you to be because you can't change them.
True.
Yeah.
True. There's a question here. How do you handle trauma from a condition like a child who stammers or kids who are physically challenged and they keep asking, why me? Why was I born? Yes.
Wow. Sometimes you have to put yourself in that child's shoes and also realize that they experience the world differently. And them experiencing the world that way does not make them abnormal. So you have to affirm them. You have to create an environment. We find situations where, a family has a child who has needs or special needs can have that adversity because the parents will not be able to deal with it all the same in a leveled manner throughout. So there has to be somebody who is willing to go the extra mile to offer the support to that child and to make them feel that they are not abnormal, they are just built special. Okay, and they see the world differently, and the way they see the world is not wrong. You may also need to find support system for them so that they can be exposed to other kids who have similar conditions for them to experience, appreciate who they are and their abilities, as opposed to keeping them in an environment where we have able children and children who are lacking. Okay, so if they are exposed to that environment, then they will always question, because they see there's something different and they're treated differently. But if you make effort and find this, because there are support environments for them, then they will be able to appreciate them. They also need to feel that you love them, you understand them, and that you can be patient to help them move at their pace. Don't be in a hurry. Don't run out of patience. Encourage them so that they have some form of self-belief. We find the best engineers, right, are autistic. Okay. Then you may find the best, operation managers are people who have anxiety. So they are perfectionists. Okay. So you can learn to live and handle your condition if it is not causing you impairment or distress, or causing your environment distress. And that's what you need to create for a child with special needs.
Great. Lest I forget, let me remind us that this session is brought to you by Atara Solutions and Balcon Housing. If you've failed to see any of our previous posts, rather if you're a new member joining us for the very first time today, please log on to our YouTube channel, Facebook channel, or Facebook page and Instagram at Atara Solutions. There is another question here from, there's a person whose younger sister is having trauma, lost their dad while 3 and growing up with normal figure. She has developed a bipolar thing. How can they be of help to the sister who is just 16?
Now, I'd say, one, the child needs, the 16-year-old needs therapy. ACEs, any condition you get because of trauma, childhood trauma, or ACEs comes with another condition. So we call it comorbidity. So I would want to know, is it the bipolar that is, the main problem, or do they have another, challenge that is actually the main problem, so that we can address it from the main problem to what else is coming up. Now, when we talk about bipolar, we are looking at people who experience both extremes. So you experience hyper alertness and anxiety and drive. And then you also experience low mood, hopeless, helpless, which is called depression. So this is because they may not have learned how to regulate their mood. And because I mentioned it affects the brain development, it will also affect the neurological pathways. So definitely with bipolar, they would need to be on medication, and then they would need support in therapy. The family would also maybe need a lot of education on how to deal or be able to point out and what is normal and abnormal behavior. What is the normal behavior for someone with bipolar? What is an abnormal behavior? And what behavior do we encourage or model within the home? So it calls for work. However, it is a learning journey. It's not tiring work, it's a learning journey, because you get equipped with skills that not only support your family members, they could be handy for you or for someone else.
Right. I think the information that you shared with us for the person who asked that question, we've given, rather we've shared, we've tried to be very conclusive. If there's anything you'd wish to get, or rather any more information you'd feel to get, please feel free to contact Hisia through us, or you can contact Nancy directly. That one also applies to the prize first session, to the person who asked that. And there's another query here. How do you explain 2 or more siblings going through the same experience, growing up, but one manifests trauma while another is okay?
It is possible. Remember, I said adversity can give you skills that drive you, or can leave you at a point where you feel broken. Okay? So yes, you could have grown up in the same environment, but your view, the way you view the situation is different. And also the point at which you experience this trauma, the age at which you experience this trauma can affect how you relate with yourself or with your environment. So those are some of the contributing factors. And your personality, okay? There's something I left out when I was preparing my presentation. If, say, a mother gives birth to a child who is needy, right? So that child wails, instead of crying, they wail, they demand for attention. You know, that can be draining, and that can affect how the mother relates to the child. So the same thing, because children are born with different personalities, with different ways of expressing themselves, they also will view the world differently. But it doesn't mean that the one who has seems to have made progress in their life don't have experiences or triggers or ways that they remember. They probably have nightmares, but they block that, or they dealt with it. Or they probably have negative coping mechanism, which could be towards substances. They could have short tempers, but they've made progress with themselves. However, on the other hand, looking at the one who had the adversity may have challenges with expressing themselves, their self-esteem, their drive in life, So it's all based on your personality and how you're able to deal with this. And when I talked about journaling, I said it's important to understand yourself, so that you can know how to handle and how to deal with these things.
Great. We are having quite a number of questions streaming in. And thank you, Gishia, for sharing your contact details for those, again, who would feel like getting a session through Nancy. You can reach out to them via the email address that have been shared and the contact shared on the chats. Grace.
Yes.
We lost you at some point.
Yes, today technology has just given me a number, Yani. Anyway, but it's life. I think you're missing out on a very important question, which is probably the last two that we're going to take. Jacinta is saying, is it possible that you may lack confidence due to where you were brought up? And I know you've talked about it, but maybe you can just answer that.
Yes, based on where you were brought up and who brought you up. How will you lack confidence if they challenged how you look, how you behave, invalidated your feelings, you felt unheard, right? And then you feel that the environment also seemed like, say, you grew up in a slum or in the village, but all your cousins, went to those high-end schools. You may have challenges with the way you view yourself or you view your abilities. So where you grew up and who brought you up, that will impact your confidence levels. The second one, Grace?
There's somebody, Kevin, I don't know whether you've seen Moelu's question. She's saying, I think we skipped my social media influence question. I don't know whether, Moelu, you're able to post it again. When I disappeared, of course, I lost all the chats, so I'm not really able to scroll back up. Nancy, today we have seen a number. This week has just, yeah.
It's okay. We are navigating through.
Yes, we will get there for sure. We will get there. Yeah. So Muilu, you can just post your question and then we can be able to answer. But Nancy, like how long does it, on average, when you're dealing with childhood trauma, like how many sessions does one need to actually get the tools to deal? Because I know this is just normally it's you walk a journey that gives you tools that you can employ every time such things happen. So like how long does one need?
Well, depending on the issue, it can range from 3 months, those are 12 sessions, to maybe even a year's journey. Okay. And I'll say that because maybe for my organization, our approach is that we help you get from that point of stuckness. We start to stagger the sessions if we see you have improvements. So you may find yourself coming in once a month for therapy when there's improvement. But why a period of about a year? So that we can help you be able to set goals and see what triggers or what situations have you gone through. Have you actually felt like you're reliving your childhood experience, and how have you handled that? Okay, so gaining the skills or just learning about them and not putting them into practicality is not helpful 100%. It's helpful when you put them into practicality, you succeed in certain areas, or you feel challenged and you come back and say, this solution I had for this challenge is not working. Like the person who asked about how they can deal with the toxic parents, okay? So you may come up with a solution, but it may not be practical for your environment. So therapy will help you to scrutinize what is healthy and practical for you. So yeah, that is the range. 3 months to a journey of 1 year. Just, invest. It's an investment in your health.
Okay. I think that was important because some of these things are quite difficult. I have a friend who was actually raped when she was about 9 years, and she thinks it's probably the reason she's still not married to date. And she also thinks that the reason why she doesn't keep relationships is because of such an ordeal. Do you think that would be the reason?
It could be. It could affect her ability to trust or ability to allow herself to be vulnerable. Okay. So she can be able to make contact, but not maintain that contact. So maybe the skill here is to learn how to maintain contact, but we don't begin it from that sexual approach. We begin it from a different angle, so that by the time you're getting to that intimacy or sexual engagement, then you're feeling safe enough and you have already laid a good enough foundation to last you along a period, and all your other needs are met.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the fact that we have people who actually date multiple partners, and they very quickly move on. Like today they were with this one, and then tomorrow they're on somebody else. Is it a result of like abandonment, or I don't know?
Yeah, it could be them trying to seek comfort, and also that comfort they are seeking is not consistent, because they are seeking it, but the person may not be ready to settle or even to commit, which leads them to seeking pleasure. Contact every other time is a form of addiction, or sexual engagement with different people every other time is also a form of addiction. And any form of addiction is because one is trying to cope with a situation they are not unable to express or deal with. So yeah, it could be originating from that, or it could be originating from some experience they have had.
Okay, I understand. Richard, you have your hand up as we finalize. Richard, I have allowed you to talk. You have your hand up, or was that one by mistake?
No. Thank you very much, Nancy, for that very insightful presentation. My question is, why are emotions disparaged, especially now men? You are told you are not supposed to cry as a man. Why do you think emotions are so much disparaged, especially when it comes to men? That men are supposed to be rational, yet we have feelings, but culture tells us not to express. If you express your emotions, you are considered a sissy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Richard, for asking that. And when an emotion is discouraged, that is a form of abuse. All right. So we have a men forum, which we call the Men Mental Health Garage, where we talk about negative masculinity and those negative beliefs that, allow me 1 minute. Sorry, my background is a bit noisy. So in this day and age, the way you raise a child or children should be uniform. Okay, so boys should be allowed to tell and feel happiness, to feel disappointment, to name what they're experiencing. When you discourage, those people who their emotions have been discouraged end up being narcissists or abusers. For women, they end up being histrionic. So most of those abusers you find, it's because they didn't learn how to. And so they expect you not to respond when you're going through adversity, because it's not right, it's not fair, and that's the only way they should relate. So I would say why it's discouraged, I'll say it should be encouraged. Every parent should encourage a child, be male, be female, to express themselves and have uniformity in this. Yeah, I hope I have answered you, Richard.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think you have done quite a bit. Somebody's saying, do you have therapists who offer EMDR therapy and hypnotherapy?
Hypnotherapy, yes. EMDR, I would say not at the moment, but hypnotherapy you will get.
Okay. Kevin, had you taken the questions on the Q&A?
Yes, I had.
The concentration and challenges at work, that one?
No.
Okay.
No, not that one.
Okay. Nancy, there are two questions. Concentration challenges at work and consistency in doing things. Is it related to a childhood trauma?
That is concentration. Is it lack of concentration? If it is lack of concentration, and if you're not consistent, it means that you are postponing, or so that would look like ADHD, although we would need to check in for other symptoms. And then now I would want to know whether you have a family history on such mental health condition. If not, then it would point out to adversity in childhood. If you have a family history, then it would point out to a genetic predisposition.
Okay. And then somebody else is saying, is it wrong to create distance with a toxic parent?
We talk about boundaries, not distance. I'd like to help them reframe that. It is important to set boundaries and to know the form of boundaries you want to have, and to be able to tell when your boundaries are being violated. We have boundaries in 7 key areas in life. I can talk about it in a different forum. And boundaries can be rigid, they can be flexible, or they can be porous. Okay, so there are situations where you have to form rigid boundaries. So if you feel at that particular time, you probably need rigid boundaries because you're doing some internal work, then that is okay. If you feel that you may need to have flexible boundaries, there are things that you're firm on, and there are things that you're going to give leeway, or situations that you're going to form leeway. For example, somebody who is manipulated to taking on the financial burden of a parent, and the parent is able, you can choose not to continue taking that financial obligation. And where you will be flexible is in the area of illness. So you may take an insurance cover to protect your parents, or be ready to cover for their medical expenses. That is a flexible boundary. And then there are areas where you will say, this is my boundary, but I will allow. So there's movement in and out. So that is a porous boundary. And being able to know when is it violated. You know, it is violated if your boundary is porous, when the person is too much into your business and they're not letting you in their business. Okay. The flexible boundary, and being able to know when flexible boundaries, they are violated when you find also you have expanded the number of people you're letting in, the number of things you are going to handle, okay? Such that you know your perimeters are almost cracking. You have no more coping or ability to deal with. And then the rigid boundaries are broken when you are forced to neglect your own needs to address other people's needs. So knowing what boundaries, the distance, I will call it a boundary.
Okay. I think we cannot exhaust all matters childhood trauma. I can see somebody asking, do you offer services for children 7 to 12 years? Yes, she does, including younger than that. She handles trauma from 0 age to old age. Yeah, including having psychiatrists in place. All right,
Yeah.
so we have 2 offers from Pathway Solutions. If you're looking to get a training from Pathway Solutions, we have 2 offers for people here. And if you want to train with Pathway Solutions, they have quite a number of training sessions that they have loaded on the LMS. LMS is Learning Management System, where you log in, they give you login details, you go in there, you do learning by yourself, you do an assessment. When you pass, they give you a certificate. And they're quite a number. They've designed a number, quite good information there, from HR to personal development to customer service, quite a lot. And we have been offering these training sessions to you in the last 1 month. So quite a number of people have been gaining this, and we are very grateful, especially Team Atara, all of them are actually undergoing the training right now. And thank you very much, Frank, for the offer. We have also gotten quite a number. I think the last 4 weeks, we've been getting 5 people taking 5 courses from Pathway Solutions. So if you're looking to take advantage of this, I think today I don't have access to their, what do we call it, brochure, but we will be here. If you want to get training for Pathway, I'm sure some of you who are not new here have know about it. Kindly email me. 2 of you will get the training sessions, 5 courses for free. So if you're interested, please send an email, and it will be a case of first come, first served. So, and then we will keep doing this. Thank you very much, Frank, for your partnership. And Pathway Service Solutions have been with us from season 2, and we really appreciate. Please take advantage of this. Technology has changed, so learning has also become easier, and this one you can do by yourself. It is not those ones you say that my employer does not pay for me training. You have Get It Right, which is our Tuesday forum, and then you also have Frank, who is also doing it for you. You do at your own pace. No one is pushing you. So please get in touch with me, and you can get to understand what exactly we are talking about. Nancy, thank you for coming through. Our speaker canceled, and Nancy is my go-to person. She's also my therapist. So you guys will be in safe hands. Thank you so much. And I hope that you can keep changing lives. Thank you for coming through in such short notice. And our audience, thank you. I know today we actually sent invites this morning and last evening. It's just been a hectic season, but we are grateful to be alive, and we are grateful that we are able to do this regardless of everything that's happening. And thank you so much, our sign language interpreter. We really appreciate your presence here. Thank you. And Kevin, I allow you now to finalize as a representative of Atara Solutions. I think you're coming up quite well. So yes.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And as usual, or rather as always, this session was brought to you by Balcony Housing and Atara Solutions in partnership again with Pathway Solutions. So we thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be with you this evening. Cheers. Looking forward to meet you next Tuesday.
Awesome.
So yeah, Kevin, we forgot to talk about the partners. We have Ames College of Business. If you're looking to take your CHRP, for the HRs who are here, Ames College of Business and Technology are offering CHRP. If you have a student who cleared Form 4 and they're looking for a place to study anything business related, Ames College of Business is there for you. They are in Lotta's house on Haile Selassie Avenue. And they have quite a number of diverse courses for you. So if you have a student who's looking for a college, or you yourself is looking to improve your skills, please get in touch with us and we'll link you up with Ames Business College, or you can look them up on their social media pages or their website for all your professional training needs, including accounting, technology, for those who want to do computers, for those who want to do security courses. They have quite a number. So thank you so much, Ames College of Business and Technology. For our other partners, Balcon Housing, Stallion Construction Company, Career Management Center, Pathway Solution Services, Wandi Restaurant, and We Clean. We thank you for your partnership. Asanteni sana. Our audience, as always, it's a pleasure. And have yourselves a good night. There's a WhatsApp platform. Yes, Kevin and Jacinta, I don't know which one of you will share the link for somebody who wants to be getting an update on what's happening with Get It Right every Tuesday. And I'm glad that people have learned. I can see your comments. Thank you very much for making the time. And we shall continue having these conversations on trauma and all that. And I have shared what my friends did on their webinar. They did a religious trauma, they did school trauma, and they did, what do we call it? School trauma, religious trauma, and gosh, this third one has just decided to disappear. And let me just find it. So there was religious trauma, work-induced trauma, and school-induced trauma. You know, we get traumatized in all aspects of life. So this, I don't know whether Kevin, you picked Dinah's number for the WhatsApp group. And all right. So thank you guys. And as you listen to this, please, as you go back, be better parents. As you deal with yours, Nancy, have you reminded them that they should not be the parents who are inducing trauma for their children?
Yes, that's why they are working through healing, the journey of healing.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can give us your final remarks, Nancy, as we log out.
I really appreciate the audience, being very interactive even when we were having the technical challenges. And this is a conversation. When it comes to conversations around mental health, I am always, and my organization is always happy to take it up. And we are always ready to help impact the society in a positive manner. Your health begins with your mental health or your mental status. If your mental status is not at the right place, it will register and it will be stored in your body and it will manifest in your health or in your behavior. So if you have any form of challenge, even if you're seeing a physician, it's good to get a mental health assessment, because that will help us and will help you to point out what could be the challenges. So if you've never tried therapy, try mental health assessment with Hisia. Asante.
Thank you very much, Hisia Technology, under the leadership of Nancy. We really appreciate your partnership and always being a phone call away for us. Thank you so much. And we hope that the conversations continue going. Nancy runs something on Twitter every Tuesday. You can check out Hisia Technology on Twitter. They do quite interactive sessions, and you can look out for that. For the men here, please make sure that you're taking advantage of the male sessions that are organized by Hisia Technology. And psychology, gosh.
Yeah. Hisia Psychology Consultants.
Yes, Hisia Psychology Consultants. I'm just thinking the way technology has done us number. Anyway, So I think it's time for me to go and sleep as well. And I am in the land of Matoke. So it is, I think I'm past dinner. So I think today I will survive. And you guys have a lovely evening. Next week is you same time, same place, as we look at businesses, entrepreneurship. We are hosting somebody who runs a business in the US, and we want to see, is it as easy or is it as hard everywhere? You know, I keep saying entrepreneurship should be listed in the 1,000 ways to die. And so next week we want to learn more about running a business in the diaspora, because I mean we are growing in as much as we are taking a day at a time. We are growing. So thank you so much, you guys, and have yourselves a lovely evening.